Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of How Did This Get Booked? I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning, and I have been a veteran of the professional wrestling business for almost 13 years now. I've held just about every job except selling popcorn in the industry of professional wrestling. And I'm joined by my co-host, my tag team partner, a man who is 0-1 in bar fights that are filmed at Monday Night Raw.
That's right.
Zane Riley.
How you doing, Jake?
Good. How are you, Zane?
Very sore. I went through a wall on TV.
Still haven't gotten the paycheck yet.
No, man. When that paycheck comes, you will not see me for a week.
And the funny thing is, I was there too. I didn't go through a wall. Probably getting paid the same.
Exactly. But I'm going to use my big WWE check to say, fuck all my friends for about 10 minutes.
Well, speaking of friends, we have another friend is along for the ride, as we always do, a non-wrestling fan. You might recognize her voice from from my other podcast, Stranger in the Southern Land. Improviser, producer, extraordinaire individual, and talented all around. Glynnis O'Donoghue, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about something I have not too much experience with, but...
Well, that's why you're here. You're a non-wrestling fan. I want your opinions on that, and we've picked a doozy for you. For sure. This is diving in. This is pulling behind the curtain. This isn't just a wrestling show. This is gutting of a fish, if you will. At least in 1997.
Yeah.
When this was filmed. But before we dive headfirst into this discussion of Beyond the Mat, what are your impressions of professional wrestling? What is your exposure to it of your life prior to watching this documentary?
So I grew up, I was a kid in the 90s, so I knew who Hulk Hogan was. He was a big deal. Even as a child, I had an awareness of him.
You saw the sex tape. You're well aware.
No, not as a child, but...
We're not trying to promote child porn here. Or the viewing of porn by minors, man.
I have a vivid memory of him, like, at the end of some TV show being like, stay in school. No, God, I know. This was a...
different TV show.
Sorry, it just
Totally
circles back
different.
around to the sex tape with
It really does. It colors all of my memories.
Mostly at night vision. You know?
Yes, exactly. And I know who The Rock is.
Okay.
And
related to Dwayne Johnson.
Yes. I was very excited when I saw him on the movie. And my husband was very into wrestling when he was a kid. He's not a wrestler or anything, but he had a notebook where he would create his own characters. And like when I even just mentioned this podcast to him, he lit up and was like talking about bushwhackers and like all the like doing like walking around our house and like showing me walks and moves, and I was like,
just start flicking this out of your
They
face.
lift their arms here and then they step. They lift their arms and they step.
Lick.
And so he is full of knowledge that I didn't even know. So this podcast has shown me a side of my husband.
We've shown you part of your marriage.
Right. Who he really is inside. So that's kind of it. I did know it was like a super theatrical medium, or because I'm a performer and I'm in theater, so I appreciated that it's spectacle and about kind of a live event, which I dig.
Now, what is your exposure to crack cocaine?
So far, none.
So she's a novice on both levels.
I'm gonna leave this place a changed woman.
Yeah.
No exposure to crack cocaine directly. I mean, it's been around.
Heard of it.
Heard of it. Seen the effects of it.
I've heard the message by what's the name? Why am I blanking on old school hip hop? I hate myself. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
There we go.
Yes.
You've at least listened to that song.
Yes,
That's your exposure to crack cocaine.
Yeah, when Jake the Snake showed up and all that started happening, I was like, oh no.
Did your husband watch this with you?
No, he didn't. Partially because he's an improviser and a very funny person. So I thought when I was watching it, it was more like, oh yeah, this is going to be like riff track. So I didn't want to watch it with him to like, I was like, I just want to write down my impressions and not jack his jokes or like, bring things in that are wrestling related that I wouldn't.
I mean, if you want to hire a writer who just happens to be your husband, I think that's fine.
I think that's within
Maybe we should look into that.
Yeah, like especially some of our past guests, they could use a little punch up,
right, a little help. But yeah, no, I didn't watch it with him. He kind of like was hovering around at the beginning, but then he was like starting to tell stories again. I was like, you can't.
Get out of here.
You need to go.
You're soiling my experience.
Yeah, so I bet he'll watch it later. I'm probably gonna make him because I had a really strong reaction to it, so I want to watch it again.
Wow.
We'll tell you what. I'll give you the director's cut.
They can watch that.
Yes, because to let people know how they can watch this if they haven't already. Funny little story about that. Normally, what I do in a situation, if it's something that's copyrighted, as opposed to forcing you guys to pay to watch this, or ordering it on Amazon and having to wait for it to show up, or trying to track it down where you look for it. Sometimes what I do is I just rip a copy of it, upload it as an unlisted video, and then email you guys a link. Which I did, but then YouTube pulled it, even though it was unlisted. And then I'm like, I wonder if this is out here for free somewhere. And it's on YouTube, and it's got 1 million views.
Yep.
And the person who has it had ads on it, so he was obviously getting revenue from it. But me, a guy who's just having it unlisted, who had 2 views at the time, was pulled by WWE because of copyright reasons.
How dare you? How dare you?
How dare you?
Good day, YouTube. I said good day.
So I gave you the quality. So what I gave you was the regular version, and it was a little bit lower quality. I was hoping to get you something a little more high quality to watch because once you put it full screen, it's rather grainy. But anybody who wants to watch it for free, it's on YouTube on 2 different YouTube places, and most people, at least wrestlers, have seen this movie before.
Just not Jake Manning's YouTube.
Yeah, just not on my YouTube page. But moving right along, I must give the particulars like I always do, and just like I do a wrestling show, it's a little bit different because it's a documentary, it's a movie. Of course, it is entitled Beyond the Mat, as everybody knows. It was directed, written, narrated, and produced by Barry Blaustein, which we've heard in the locker rooms for years. It's all that damn Barry Blaustein ruined the business or made me look like shit in this Beyond the Mat documentary.
Aww.
Always heard his name in a negative connotation, which is funny because this particular documentary has an 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
So it's pretty much the best thing we've ever put on here?
Absolutely. Also rave reviews and like film festivals. Also too, I believe, its budget was $500,000 and its box office was $2 million. So it is very much a success.
Nice.
All of that went to
all
Jake's
the way around.
Crack.
Yes.
Oh.
It was released in October of 1999, and actually WCW was asked to be a part of the documentary, but they refused.
They're too good.
They were too good, apparently. And actually, Vince gave, full access through the whole thing, and was like, hey, great, yeah, this is good. And I even remember the ads running on Monday Night Raw. But then after they saw a viewing of the documentary, I guess Linda said that this is bad for the WWE and it's painting us as a very violent promotion and not the fun violence that we're trying to promote. Which I don't think that's what fun violence wasn't what they were going for in 1997. Feels like it captured it just accurately. Also, too, I should list that some of the other producers on this documentary was Barry Bloom, which is notable agent for a lot of people in WCW and high-level guys. Also, too, Ron Howard and Brian Glazer were attached to this
No
thing.
way.
Yes, so...
Opie did this?
Yeah. I think it was because it was a part of their production company, hence, like, we'll just put our names on it so they can get into more locations and more screens and put out there. So a lot of people try to avoid the cameras. The Stone Cold Steve Austin tried to avoid the cameras as much as possible. That's only why there's one little scene, and he just happened to be the hottest thing at the time, but he wanted no part of this documentary, but everybody else is very welcoming. But also, too, once Linda would get pissed about it, a lot of the ads got pulled, and they were going to go to a lawsuit about it, and Vince forbidded anybody to do advertising for it, but Mick Foley, a man of his word, went on Larry King to advertise it. So,
Oh, you guys, Mick Foley. This was like the biggest takeaway from this movie for me was a raging crush and attraction to Mick Foley. Like,
well, what is it? Please tell me this, because you are not. Don't feel alone in that, because I've seen him in a locker room, and some of the most attractive women have just like gravitated towards him, and his wife is a former model.
Yeah.
What is it that attracts you to him?
I don't know. Like, he was just on screen. I'm looking. I have notes of when I was watching it. But, like, he had no front teeth for his interviews, and I was like, oh, yes, that man.
I need some no front teeth action in my life.
He just he's one of those people that just seems very open and warm, and he's being who he is. Some of the stuff that happened in the movie made me upset, but he seemed like a genuine person. And he just had these big brown eyes, and the fact that he's happily married, which I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like, yeah, that makes you more attractive to me. Like,
because I'm miserable.
No. I'm not.
Because I want to take that away from you.
I want to destroy it. I don't want to destroy it, but like he's a loving dad and a partner, and just seemed like a whole human being as opposed to. And I know none of that reads on stage. Like, that's not his persona, but seeing him in the interviews, that's what I saw. And he seemed very like playful and to enjoy what he did, which I think in any profession shows if you like what you're doing. He seemed to love it. I mean, the end scene.
He has a passion.
Rough. Yeah.
He's a very kind individual, very funny, very relaxed, confident in himself and secure in himself.
Yeah.
Also too, brown eyes, I guess, help. So
I know.
if you have blue eyes, you're screwed, guys.
My husband has blue eyes, and I love him very much.
For the record.
Let me preface with that. But, Mick Foley, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are,
I want to dive into those big brown eyes and just stay there forever.
I will buy you new front teeth.
Yep.
If that's what you want. That's
my love.
But anyways, with the WWE, WWF at the time, that will happen multiple times in the middle of this. That's kind of the jumping off point, and Barry Blaustein was able to walk through the front doors of Titan Towers, which, very revolutionary at the time. Seeing this as a documentary, that somebody gets to walk in through Camelot, basically. Like, when you're driving up 95 or up there through Stamford, Connecticut, you can see it from the interstate. So it's this big ivory tower, this house on the hill from a distance. And being a wrestling fan, you've always seen it. And, I've done many deliveries dropping off canvases to a warehouse. They won't even let you get close to Titan Tower. They have like a warehouse off site, and they have just like all kinds of things in it, and just random warehouse, and just like, it's the Mecca. You know what I'm saying? Like, being able to walk into Old Yankee Stadium into Steinbrenner's office is basically the type of clearance that Barry Blaustein was able to get with this documentary. So, I think that's quite remarkable. And seeing it in 97 is very much a time capsule.
For sure.
Yeah. And just the thing that I always got when I first watched it was the woman that was going, hello, welcome to the WWF. Hello, welcome to the WWF.
Yes.
At first I was like, is that her only job?
Yes, I was like, is she actually helping anyone on the phone? I had the exact same thought.
I still don't know. Like, after 15 years after this movie came out, I still don't know.
Someone must have been like, okay, they're going to be shooting, so look really busy, and we just want it to seem like we can't even handle the number of calls coming in right now.
Pretend this is a hub of just wrestling information.
Yes.
And go.
And she's not even saying, I'll transfer you to. She's like, hello, welcome to WWF, and click.
Yeah.
Just hangs up on them.
Like, is that her job? Is just wrestlers calling all day and she's just hanging up on them?
Just one guy trying to get an answer.
Trying to tell somebody's dead, and this lady's just shutting him down the door.
Luke Gallows calling when he's like 13 years old. Can I talk to Tom Pritchard? Which is how some guys got jobs.
Tell him I'm here.
And I noticed too, like, you kept hearing her as they were walking through different parts of the office. So, like, they had clearly walked away from her, but they were like, no, keep it as like
keep that audio.
Yeah.
Give it some more hustle and bustle, even though there's just cubicles everywhere.
Exactly.
She was actually just turning on the intercom instead of hanging up. I'm giving this movie all as much as I can.
Because they tried to make it look more interesting than what it was. They were like, oh, what's in this door? Oh, it's just a regular office. What's in this door? It's just a regular office. What's in this door? Oh, it's just the copy room.
Right.
Somebody take out your wiener.
Somebody do something.
Yeah.
Why are these people in gold gym sweatshirts that are cut off right around here and here walking around? It's the most interesting thing about it. And of course, the interview with Vince, like, there's only a few clips of it, but like, there's still this quote that bothers me, where he's like, to make it very clear what we're really about. ... Making movies.
We're like have the same brain right now because I wrote that down and it's like that's what we really do. And I wrote next to that, really? Is that what you're doing?
Me too. That's what I wrote. I wrote really too. I wrote really too on my piece of paper.
I did a puzzle while I watched this movie. I didn't write anything down. I'm working on a really nice Marvel Funko Pop 1000 piece puzzle. But I've seen the bit of art before. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
But make movies from the same company that did The Marine,
See No
Marine
Evil.
2, See No Evil. Also, too, Vince McMahon, the brain trust that wrote No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
Him and Hulk Hogan locked themselves in like a hotel room for 24 or 36 hours and wrote No Holds Barred.
Just a bunch of drugs.
Yeah, just powered right through.
Filmed a sex tape.
Banged it out. Yeah,
Maybe.
We haven't seen that one.
We haven't seen that one. That might have been in Titan Towers. They might have that was in the
we
next
did.
office. And they just went down the hallway.
One more room, and you're just in Hogan and Vince, just.
But yeah, like that's the thing. We're about making movies. Well, why'd you come up with the XFL shortly after this? This is my question. Seems like you're more about like trying to make money to start a new football promotion like that. Like you were still a couple years away from making movies. So yeah, that it still strikes me odd. But looking back on it, I think it's very funny. But you get to see the pieces of the machinery of the production. You were saying, you working in production, you see the live show put together. What were your thoughts on 1997 WWF and the things they were doing?
Well, I actually wrote, I was instantly depressed about the, as a producer, because that's part of what I do, how elaborate the budget and the departments were. Like, they have money for music and costume, and it's like, man, if I could have a sliver of that budget, I could get so much done. So I was impressed, and I just, I didn't know how much went into it, but I was pretty impressed that, it's a big theatrical event. I don't know how many people they employed. They talked about the $1 billion. I wrote $1 billion. Holy crap! That's a huge industry.
Well, but that's even then. Now I don't even want to think about it. Like what it is now. And just I made jest of it in your intro, Zane. Just that little bar scene that was shot on Monday Night Raw.
Jesus.
Like they built a fake wall. They had professional stunt people. They had stunt glass. They had cameras, lights. They'd rented out a bar that was in the epicenter.
Oh my god!
For an entire day. And
how much did you rehearse for that? Like that's what I always wondered about stunts.
We got there at 3:30. We started. We got there at 3:30. They got there about 4:30. We probably got really going, like everybody in there, about 5, and then we got done at 7:50. So 2.5 hours of the whole deal, but that whittled down into like a 4.5 minute shot.
How did they prep you for getting thrown through a wall though? Did you pretend?
Hey man, you want to go through that wall? And then I was like, yeah, I have all this.
Really? It was just
but as a wrestler, you've had a hardcore match and you've fought around, so
right.
we're only a couple steps away from stunt people anyways. Yeah. And when the person you're fighting is also a wrestler, there's a certain language and knowing where your body's going to be. So that communication's already out the door. Like you've already got the same communication of fight training.
Right.
If you go to a fight training at this place and fight training at this place, it might not be exactly the same. Where in pro wrestling, it is the same. And the thing that they went through a couple of takes, but then the fight part was in one take because they only had one wall. And,
right. I was gonna say,
and the thing is that they finished up right as while the show was starting, so they had to get it done and then edited and then put on the show. But then just the thought of the amount of money that they put into just really a 3-minute thing that was just to get guys over for a little bit or expand a story on television could have cost them anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000.
And these guys, that's all you saw them on that show. They weren't and then they also had a match afterwards. No, they were brought to Charlotte just to do this.
Wow.
And that's that right there just is a little bit of it too. It's far much larger than it is right now. This is right before they became a publicly traded company, and there was an injection of money into it, and it became as large as it is now. This is just coming out of almost a dark period for them as well, when they weren't number one, when WCW was kicking their ass. So for them to be doing as well as, if you were being impressed with them now, you're talking 10, maybe 20 times better even now.
Dang.
So it's pretty amazing, and it is a nice little time capsule, and we'll get into some other notes of that later on. But one of the things that this is pretty legendary for is the meeting with Droz. Mm-hmm. What was your thoughts of the meeting with Droz and coming up with a character, being somebody that worked with characters?
Oh my gosh, I felt so sick watching that, and not from a ooh gross throw up stance, but I felt because I'm an actor, I've been in a lot of auditions, and you guys know auditioning is hard because, you know, you're kind of at the mercy of these people in this room. But I felt like I was watching an audition for like some sort of like sex act when Vince was like, yeah, you gonna throw up? You gonna throw up? And I was like, oh my God, like, I felt...
You know what I was gonna ask you to do, right? Like...
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you had not been watching visually, it could have been like...
And it's right over here.
Right, exactly. The
Don't get in on my table there.
The audio sounds like...
Don't get into my hair either.
Like, exactly. It sounds like a pornographic audition. I just felt badly for him. And I laughed when he was like, you're going to be puke. But not just puke. Puke. Which I was like, is that 6 U's? Like, what's the difference between those two?
Can you spell that
things?
phonetically?
Yeah, exactly. So it made me feel like badly for him. And then I know his fate later is revealed in the movie, but I don't know, it made me feel bad, like, because I've been in a lot of auditions, I've seen a lot of bad auditions, but I just felt dirty afterwards. Like, I felt badly for him because I feel like in a lot of entertainment the talent is exploited, and that was like a little snippet of this guy who is, you know, I don't know him, not super bright, had a failed football career, and it's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, like, and I, you know, it's always hard to watch someone kind of, I don't know if he was compromising himself, but he was just like, yeah, sure, Vince McMahon, I'll do that, you know, and it just felt a little icky to me. I don't know.
Did you see his facial hair? I don't think he
was
compromising.
I think this is the best he could do.
Yeah, he wasn't compromising anything.
Right, he was
one thing when he was a football player, I think he had a similar issue that I had in college, and I'll get to that in a second, is he had a propensity to like vomit when he would get overly excited, and he vomited on the ball one time on, I believe, on Monday Night Football, and he was a center. So he's ready to hike the ball to the quarterback, and he vomits on the ball. So like that was like a big thing, and that's where he got the name Puke and the ability to do that.
And during that scene, Vince McMahon said, I wrote it down because it stuck to my ear. It was like, after you regurgitated on the on somebody or the referee itself, he called the referee it in that sentence, and I was like,
well, they are.
Oh, yeah, well, are they really?
They're not real people.
Is that
they're all holograms. They're all holograms.
No, is that a thing in wrestling? Like, refs are kind of scenery or not expected?
Trust me.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, when you have a bad one, you appreciate a good one.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to puke on them, and you wish they were a hologram and or a football.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We used to run wrestling shows one time where we didn't have referees because, in the words of my wrestling trainer and who was the promoter of the show, he goes, they just get in the way. And then, of course, Charles Robinson, senior official for WWE right now, walked in just randomly at this show because he knew my promoter, wrestling trainer, George South. And he goes, why is there no referee in the ring? And I go, George thinks they get in the way.
Oh my God.
You know the thing you do for a living?
Yeah.
The guy who trained you doesn't think it's obsolete. Just let you know. But no, once I said, when you get a good one, you know it. When you get a bad one, you really know it. So.
And are refs usually people who have wrestled? Is it? I mean, like at the end, they had the...
Depends.
They've been around it for a long
The
time.
better ones seem to be ones that used to wrestle. Because
Okay.
they know what not to do. And, you know, it usually works out that way sometimes. But there are people that jump right in and do it, and they're great, and they're fantastic, you know. But sometimes they get to be, like, gophers a lot, you know, because they're just trying to, like, set up chairs, set up the ring, do this, because it's just, like, it's exploitive as well. You know, you can be replaced just very easily. So. But, yeah, him having to puke on command, which I used to be able to do. Believe it or not. Yeah,
Oh, you like a job, Jake?
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, this was only a few years after that, and I remember this because, like, when I was in college and I was a track athlete, my coach was awful, and he made us work, like, we spent 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week training for shot putting, and we had to get up at 5 a.m. and power lift. Well, getting up that early and powerlifting, I would build up lactic acid. And so I would, like, between sets, have to go to the bathroom and vomit, just bile, and then I grease the pipes so much that I could just do it on command through probably the first 2 years of my college. And I could just, like, I'd be at parties and just freak people out. So I could have been puke.
Yeah.
I could have been puke.
But he could have been puke now, too. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. But anyways, after we transition through the WWE, they get to APW and Roland Alexander. Now we're more at the level that's pretty similar to what me and Zane do on a weekly basis. Of talking of the area of no money, you make 25. Which when Roland was saying you make no money doing independent wrestling, you make 25, 125, or 300 if you're good. Rates have still been about that. That's
so
still,
that hasn't changed.
That's pretty similar.
Where's those 125 paydays?
Yeah, I'm still a decent away from it. Caleb's probably closer to that right now. There's a couple of our very good friends that are at the 300 range, but yeah, we're still kind of in between that 25 and 125 right now range. But those are pretty accurate even now today.
Wow.
So that hasn't changed. And the famous quote about reading labels and everything else like that whole talk is going on all across the country.
Wow.
All given by really fat, grotesque men.
Yeah, I was like, they must really love a chubby accountant, like, lecturing them on nutrition.
Yeah. Of course, I think that guy was bullshitting anyway, so...
Yeah. I loved the transition into that moment, too. It was like, how do you become a wrestler? The same way you become a doctor. I was like...
You go to a chubby accountant and he wants a $500 deposit.
Right, exactly.
At least the doctors I'm seeing these days, because I have a very bad health insurance policy right now.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So...
I was like, I had a lot of like, is that how that goes moments?
That's exactly how you become a doctor.
Yep.
And then that, of course, this is the moment in time where we get introduced to Tony Jones and Mike Modest.
Yeah.
What are your impressions of Tony Jones and Mike Modest?
Well, I really, what was the name of the chubby accountant?
Roland Alexander.
Roland. Well, and he got emotional talking about them not having contracts. That was a moment when I was watching, I was like, oh, wow, he at least can pretend, or, it felt genuine to me, and it was interesting to watch, but I the two of them kind of hit me where I live, because I know that feeling. I know that, like, I just need a chance. I just need to get in front of the right people. And he was talking about, who was the smaller one?
Mike Modest.
Mike Modest, like, he's like, wasn't big enough to be a heavyweight, isn't small enough to be a flyer. And as an actor, like, it's the same kind of industry where it's like, well, you're too brown to be a leading lady and you're too fat to be, like, the romantic interest. And it's that weird thing, like, I hate, like, my heart, like, broke watching them be put into these boxes that they really have no control over. But it was interesting to see their audition, and during their audition, somebody was talking about stealing one of their moves, and I had this moment where I was like, that's probably a thing. Like, that's a thing,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you see it. I mean, it's the same in performance. Like, if you see something that's cool, you tuck it in your brain for later, but that would make me so mad if, I saw somebody else do my move. Especially for the two of them, where it's like this huge moment for them and this huge opportunity. And I hated when Vince was like, I gotta go, send me a tape. It's like the most important day of their career, and he's like, I gotta go.
That even wouldn't have been set up if it wasn't this documentary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Probably. That even moment in itself wouldn't even existed.
Yeah.
The one dark match that I saw, nobody saw it, nobody pitched it, nobody said anything about it. It's almost like it didn't happen. Like, I wrestled in front of how many thousands of people at the RNC Stadium in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's like it never happened.
Right? It's like a ghost match.
And nobody was out putting it like now.
It's all a fucking hologram.
Yeah, well, like now, if anybody, like, in the, just even the people in the background of this last Monday with your bar fights being like, oh, I was here. Oh, I'm so glad that this person was in the background. This person was in the background. I wrestled in front of thousands and nobody even knew it happened.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing too. Like, if these cameras weren't there, and a lot of this was set up because of the documentary, not to discredit Mike Modest or Tony Jones and stuff like that.
Right.
But also too, at this time, I would even say, like, someone like Mike Modest, where they say he's too small, to be heavyweights, or that analogy. That paradigm hasn't been broken up to the last 2 years.
Really?
Like, I think, like, now if someone like Mike Modest came around with a reputation or something like that, like, yeah, sure, he's good. We'll just put him on NXT and he'll be there tomorrow. And that's put him on the fast track, and yeah, sure, opportunity. He's good. He's great. Let's set him down there, and he's in our developmental system.
Wow.
And it's just that easy right now. Where back then, like, it was utterly impossible for someone like him. And also, too, the fact that, he had someone like Crash Holly who's roughly about the same size.
Yeah.
There's already somebody like him that didn't fly around, and he was too small to be a heavyweight. So they already had that guy,
Yeah, and him, working with the funeral parlor, like watching him move the bodies around, that was like an extra like smack of emotion for me, where I was like, oh, he's doing this all day, like he's literally moving dead bodies around so that he can like live his dream of moving live bodies around. I don't know.
Yeah, of slamming living.
Yeah, and sleeping in the apartment above the gym.
Which, my biggest thing when I saw Mike Modest was, you need to clean your fucking room.
They're coming.
You were messy as shit. You couldn't even get out of bed for this? A lot of people are in bed in this movie.
Yeah, there was a lot of bed talking in this.
There's a whole lot of like, I'm just going to lay in this bed, Hasselhoff style, if you don't mind.
Jake the Snake Roberts, Mick Foley.
Terry Funk's in the bed. Little tidy-waddy dong, just rocking and rolling.
Oh my god, yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing.
Some Kurosawa shit. Get him in bed.
Well, he's like, I want you to feel natural and comfortable. And they're like, I feel comfortable in bed. And he's like, okay, that's good.
Which that Terry Funk getting out of bed scene, like...
That hits me emotionally.
That hits me emotionally, because that was me this morning. Yeah. Like, that was... just a fight for me every day.
Yeah.
Like anytime Terry Funk did something on this movie, my girlfriend was walking in the background, not to be like spying, like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, this is cool. Like, she's a pro wrestler. She hates it. She just walk in and be like, oh, this is what's going on, and then would leave. Mm-hmm. But it just happened to me when Terry Funk was like getting out of bed. I go, look, babe, they filmed me get out of bed.
She was like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, that's you, all right. So. But yeah, anything more we need to say about Tony Jones other than the fact that he needs to get something a little bit more flattering, work on the size of his upper body?
Tony said that like, what, you mean like tits? Or like, what do you mean?
But just very straightforward. But that's in a situation like that's the best thing you're asking for. And it is a very cosmetic business, so like...
Right.
But how did that scene strike you?
It was, sadly it's not unfamiliar to me, again, with acting and performing. It's very... People can be very blunt, but it was super upsetting to me because every, like, VP of, like, marketing or merchandising, whoever they interviewed, it's all these, like, chubby white dudes who are, like, have glasses and they're like, you need to lose, like, weight or something. And you're like, really, dude? Like, this is the guy delivering this? Yeah. Did Mick Foley talk to him at the end?
Right there at that little scene, he walked by and told him.
Very kind and you know what? Some of the type of person that Mick is, he would have done that whether the camera was on or off. But like the fact that like, hey, Mick, can you come in? Yeah, sure, I'll definitely do it. I was going to do it anyways, but it's like, hey, how do you want me to come in so you get the best shot? So not only is he doing it as a courtesy to the guys, but he's also the courtesy to the cameraman. What's the best way to be in frame for you? Like, so it's almost like you think it's very set up, and it is, but it's almost a double courtesy in a sense.
Right. Yeah, and that was before my crush had started, so it was a hilarious moment of. Like, it was totally mundane moment of being
you
like,
weren't even in love yet.
You weren't even in love yet. But it's like this guy with this mask being like, good job, man. Like, they're having a totally pedestrian conversation, but one of them's wearing, like, a wild wrestling mask. Like, I gotta love that moment.
But moving right along, and we just talked about him getting out of bed, Terry Funk. Glynnis, did you even know who Terry Funk was before this at all? He's been in a couple movies.
You never saw that car commercial? It was directed to the ladies.
I saw that. That was so interesting. I had never heard
that's
of
what
it.
interesting is.
Was that a polite way of saying it? Is that what they say in the theater? Interesting when it's really dumb?
Well, it was just so weird because it was juxtaposed with like all these shots, and they were talking about how he's more aggressive and like not afraid to like get down and dirty, and then it's like him posing with this car being like, the safest option for you is this, and it was.
He can't get out of bed, but he can sure hop out of the front seat of his car.
They couldn't get a few minute clip from the Quantum Leap episode he was in where he beat the crap out of the trailer.
He was in Roadhouse.
Yes.
Oh well, then see now, and this is like the third or fourth time on this podcast that my husband will be agitated with me because he loves Roadhouse. And
he's screaming. He's got an earbud right now and screaming at it. An earbud that may or may not have a wire on it. Depends on what phone he's got right now.
Screaming his face off.
Yeah. So
this is why you should have let me watch it with you.
We're watching Roadhouse right now.
I know. I'm gonna be doing that in the future. So I should have known who he was, but he was new to me. I really liked him a lot too. I liked almost everybody I saw in the movie, but he's
got brown eyes, right? Are we seeing a trend here?
Forever!
Yeah.
Once again, your husband's screaming again.
I love this.
Glynnis, also with this Terry Funk thing, you get introduced with ECW.
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts on how ECW was portrayed in this short little segment there?
I appreciated that they were, not the big, established franchise, that they were kind of scrappy and like kind of running it out of a house and doing their own thing. But the dude who was in charge, like,
Paul Heyman?
I did not dig, like, my like lady radar went up and was like, do not be alone in a room with that man.
Like, your lady radar is dead on.
There's like one point where he was like petting a female wrestler, and it just like totally grossed me out. Like it was before a match or something, and he was just like stroking the back of her body, and I was like,
he paid for her.
Well, funny that we bring this up. When we were backstage recently, Paul Heyman was there, and he was talking to a female wrestler that I knew quite well. And as I was just walking by, I heard the words "Don't you fucking ever," and I go, "Oh no!" So I was like, "This person's gonna cry." Something must have happened or misunderstood. So I circled, walked down, circled back around. I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" He goes, "Oh no, it was nothing but good things. That was actually a very good talk, very complimentary." I'm like, "Didn't seem like it because it seemed rather intense." And he also had a hold of her. So
yeah,
he's like, "No, nothing but really positive and good things." I'm like, really? Because there was a sense of a verber there. Like, my male social justice warrior, like,
yes.
I had to change into that outfit and run back out. So.
Right.
But, very intense individual. Some people describe Paul Heyman as an individual that would have became a cult leader if pro wrestling did not exist.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the best talkers of all time.
Which that speech he gave before the pay-per-view.
Yes, what were your initial, like, that speech? I've copied that speech before when I've worked for $5 Wrestling, which is a satire-based wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
Like, that speech, like, that gave me goosebumps. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
I appreciated it, I admired it, because you can tell that this, like, person has charisma just coming out of them, and I really liked the speech. And you could tell, like, because that's not a common quality, being able to motivate a group of people, especially a group of athletes who are all, I'm assuming, like, strong and have their own personalities. But him standing up there and, like, the like, little slime of, like, and they're all paying $20 for this, like, was a little icky. But, I mean, I don't think he's, shies away from the fact that he's trying to make money off of this. But it was, like, it was kind of like, in Shakespeare, like, Henry... once more into the breach, that like motivating speech where it's like, let's all go die.
Well, that's pretty similar to what he used to say to Sabu, I'm sure, or Sandman. That's another thing that's interesting about this part of this. I remember ECW, just like the commercials for their pay-per-views. I remember being like, oh, WWF is kind of a cartoon and it's fun, but this ECW stuff, like this is like Marilyn Manson. If I fall asleep watching it or listening to it, I'll have nightmares and become a follower of the devil. Like that's what I felt like with ECW. It was that much danger to me. And then watching it now as an adult and hearing the stories and how all these guys were just cast-offs, guys that were rejects from WWE, and just everything about it made it so wonderful and fantastic. And it was perfect with Paul Heyman there. But I don't think that this documentary captures 1/10 of that, or how important this show was. Which Terry Funk became the champion. Very big moment. Girlfriend walked in again. I go, look, babe, it's me winning the PWX title.
Yeah. Just shuffled onto the back. Yeah. I'm gonna go to bed.
Which, by the way, as the story goes, I guess minutes, like 5 minutes, because they were running out of time pay-per-view wise, because they had a cap at 3 hours, and it ended like they went off air at just the right time. And from what I heard, it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but very shortly after the pay-per-view happened, because it was an old bingo hall in South Philadelphia, run-down building, shouldn't have been broadcasting a pay-per-view. They blew out like a power transformer, and they lost power. Like 5-10 minutes after the pay-per-view happened. If that would have happened at the end of the pay-per-view, they would have never let it down. ECW wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. But the fact that it hung on just long enough for it to happen just adds to the whole lore of what ECW was. So it
doesn't exist anymore?
No, anyway, it closed in 2001, which in the epilogue of the whole thing, like, oh, it's still going strong. And they got a TV deal, which basically the TV deal was
the swan song.
Was basically to lure in WWE to go over to the Nashville network. So it was, unfortunately, the sign of the end. But But anyways, we get to Mick Foley. Is this where you fall in love with Mick Foley now? Is this where the love attraction?
Yeah, I loved when they had Mick Foley and Terry Funk together when they were talking about being friends and fighting. And I wrote down that I could totally see them like being old men on a porch together, like talking about when they used to beat the crap out of each other. And then the second thing I wrote was get that ravioli money.
Get that ravioli money.
Maybe that was it. Maybe it's really my love of carbs and pasta that like drew me to him.
A man covered that much ravioli sauce.
Yeah.
A man after my own heart.
Yeah, I just really liked the interview with him and his family, and I loved his friend Danny Zucker that talked about him. It was like, I just wrote it down because I have that name, but he talked about Rick Foley knowing since Mick Foley, excuse me.
Your future husband's gonna be pissed.
I gotta get this name right.
Now your real husband right now is pretty happy. Forget him. Yeah.
There's a crack. There's a crack.
I can win her back.
But he talked about him knowing since he was 14. That he wanted to be a wrestler and how most kids don't know that. And I wrote down, did I know that I wanted to be doing supplementary commentary for Mick Foley's documentary when I was 14? Yes, I did.
You did.
And, like, that's cool, too, that he has, like, everyone in his life seems to admire him as a person, which I know they didn't go as in-depth with other wrestlers, but that was interesting to see, like, his family, and he still has friends. And
mainly because most wrestlers are shitty people.
Yeah.
Thank you for the agreement.
I bet she's like, I've met the same guy for now 40 minutes, and I'm already
between Jay the Snake and this fat fuck.
Somewhere they fall on the spectrum.
Do you think that's true though? Because I've been an actor.
We're shitty people. Yeah.
Actors are kind of the same way. They're like, I'm selfish. Everything's about me. Is it?
Oh
yeah. Kind of a similar.
It just there's more fake Tanner involved, and that's usually where the line is being made.
More spandex on our end.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Skosh.
But speaking of Jake the Snake Roberts, it's that point of the show where Barry Blaustein finally finds Jake the Snake Roberts, the guy who he was looking for. What are your initial thoughts of Jake the Snake Roberts, Glynnis?
They talked about, what did they call it? Ring charisma or something?
Psychology?
Ring psychology. Like, when you said that thing about being a cult leader, like, he has that thing, like, it was just because they were like, he doesn't have a good body, like, he's not, like, they show him hopping over someone, they're like, he's not a great athlete.
That was the most athletic thing he did, by the way.
Like, jump over someone.
I felt like, that was a bad clip for them to say that he's not athletic. That's the best thing he's ever done, athletically.
Don't you shame him.
Yeah, don't you shame him.
How dare you?
How dare you?
Kindly leave.
Right. Like, it's like him carrying the bag is the most work he seemed to be doing, but like I was like very intrigued and like immediately afraid of him. Partially the snake, like I also don't love snakes, so that scared me, but it's really interesting because I haven't met many people, but when you meet somebody who has that like crazy like charisma, they're like, I could get you to sell all your earthly possessions, or I have
all this Kool-Aid.
Yeah, exactly. It's very captivating, and they talk of like I loved hearing everyone say, like he could be the best, and then I was like, oh no, he's not the best, because again, I know nothing, so they're like, he could be the best wrestler like in the world right now, but he's got his demons, and I was like, no. So it was sad, but yeah, his fans too. The woman who's like, I just want to hold the snakes. I was like,
she's the prime example of a wrestling fan.
Which, by the way, like a lot of towns when he gets booked, even now, like they're
is he still wrestling?
Yeah.
Well, he's like the spokesperson-esque of DDP yoga these days.
Oh.
Like he's gotten his life together.
Like
he
has?
Yes.
Complete 180.
Absolute 100. Like he's sober.
Just to give you a little solace.
I know. I feel
on
because like watching his stuff was hard, man.
She's like, good. Now I can talk shit about him more. Because before I was like, I want to kick him while he's down. No. He's back up now. He's backing up. We
doing real well.
Yeah, doing very well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I like sat down with my notepad. I was like, I'm gonna write so many funny things, and I ended up being like wrecked by this movie because there's so many hard stories to watch. Yeah, he talked about being dictator, mayor, Jake the Snake.
Yeah,
like,
that was real cool.
And I was like, he totally could too. Like people are dumb like that. They're like, yeah.
But then they're like saying, this is far down as you could go. But that show had a lot of people at it. Like that's a good weekend for me and Zane.
Yeah.
I was like, that's good. And then they're like showing a shot of him napping in the back. Like he's so far down. This is the worst it's been. I take a nap at the show that have that many people, and then it's like makes me reevaluate my life as well. Like
there was many a time where like the music was playing, and I was like, it's not that fucking bad, guys.
No,
this
is a pretty good setup. He's got
pretty goddamn good. I would love to stay at a Ramada Limited.
Yeah.
I know.
I would love to be on a show with Chris Adams while he's still alive.
Yeah, no shit.
But funny story about sober Jake the Snake Roberts and drunk Jake Manning.
Trying to get him off that wagon.
Well, that was the funny thing.
Oh, God.
He did...
does not sound funny.
It is, though. As Zane will attest, there was a very dark time in my life.
Also smoking crack.
Maybe a few steps away. Not all the way there yet. Maybe all the way there.
It's definitely sleeping in locker rooms.
Definitely falling asleep in locker rooms for different reasons. Definitely had a very strong mustache. Mm-hmm. But Jake the Snake Roberts was in town in Charlotte at Mad Monster Party. And he was sober at the time and actually knew the guy that he was hanging out with, Sin Kazari. Oh, yeah. And of course that's the guy he hung out with because he was also clean and sober and never drank before. I mean, he might have drank before, but he was pretty much always been clean and sober and stuff like that. So he was following Jake around in his first set of appearances, being clean and sober to kind of protect him and take care of him.
Right, you need people,
people around him. And so Jake was doing this autograph appearance at Mad Monster Party, and I was, of course, talking to Sin, like, hey, man, good to see you, and talking. And then Jake was right there. And, like, we shook hands. But the thing is, I was completely bombed out of my mind, like, drunk. And as soon as we touched hands, he goes, I need to leave right now. And I felt like he
tested his sobriety.
Yeah, I feel like he smelt it on me, felt it on me, saw a guy with a mustache who's obviously a wrestler, saw a reflection of himself, and said, "I need to leave right now. This place where I'm taking money from fans who just want me to sign on a piece of paper. I need to run away because I touched your hand." That's how I feel.
I like to think in his mind he saw you and was like, man, if I don't clean my shit up and get out of here, I'm going to look just like this old fella.
See, I thought it was like he saw him and was like, thought he was being visited from like a past version of himself that was like here to take him down.
And we
ghost of alcoholism past.
Yes.
I found you.
Here's your change.
These old Jack Daniels bottles are calling. It proceeds to get even sadder with Jake the Snake Roberts when we get into basically his life and his father and his mother and that whole relationship. Real fucked up family life.
Yeah. It's incredible that he was able to get the... Barry, is that our narrator? Or
Barry.
Yes. That he was able to... it was interesting. He was like, the more I drove with him, the more he just started opening up. Because he probably didn't have anybody to talk to about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was amazing that he shared so much and that they were able to get him and the dad to like angrily do yard work next to each other for
B-roll?
Yeah.
For B-roll? Hey, can you guys just kind of like be in the close proximity of each other?
It's like, well, I got some yard work to fucking do, so you want to be in here? Come on.
And of course, Grizzly Smith's just like, sure, why not? And by the way, I'll let you know, he was conceived out of love. No, he wasn't.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't. No.
That was crazy.
We just heard a tale.
Yeah.
About you.
I also like how he was like, recipe for dad's love. Get better than him at what he does and shove it up his ass.
Yeah.
And then he was like, and I did it, and it didn't work. And I was like, oh man. Like, most people don't even get to that step where they like...
do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where they succeed.
Yeah.
And an even darker twist. I don't know why, like, pro-lifers don't hold up Jake the Snake Roberts. It's like, see, even products of rape can grow on to be amazing individuals.
Right.
If we had abortion, we wouldn't have Jake the Snake Roberts.
And then the pro-choice guy's like, oh yeah, no, that's a real good argument.
She's like, I too would like to point that out.
Say it. I'm gonna go over here. There's cookies.
It could go either way. It could go either way.
I got nothing. Rest my case.
And then, of course, the talking of Jake the Snake Roberts, like, sex life, you know.
Oh, his sex life got all messed up.
No.
Oh man, you need to hear Billy Jack Haynes' sex.
All of a sudden, your husband once again is screaming there, but no!
He's like, you're never allowed to do anything like this again. No, yeah, that was.
2 at a time, 3 at a time, 2 at a time with toys.
Sometimes I just watch.
Yeah. and then us, those of us that aren't so like fucked up, we're just like, man, that sounds like a dream. That's what it is. How do I mark that off?
You're like, I wouldn't abuse it.
Just let me see it one time. Oh, okay, I'm done.
Well, you can't think of anybody either?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do anymore.
I kind of love that it shows you, like, he's an intelligent person because he had the ability to reflect on that and be like, yeah, I kind of fucked myself up that way. I feel like most people who get that down a road can't be like, I've really messed myself up. You know, like, he was really self-aware and, like, aware of his pain. Like, he said this amazing thing where he was like, I love my children, I just don't know how to be close to them. Like, you know, he was like, literally like, I don't have that part of me. Like, you know, so it was really interesting to hear him because it wasn't just watching a guy who's gone off the rails and is like,
That's the thing, is, you know, growing up a product of being molested, like getting close to his kids, in the back of his mind is like, is this gonna get weird? Like, am I gonna do to them what I like? Just even me hugging them, how does this react? And that's the thing about him being a performer and being so good at ring psychology. You have to be so aware of what yourself is and what you're doing. Yeah. But it's almost wondering if the product of his abuse, he had to come to terms with that, or was wrestling the therapeutic thing that pulled that out of him? Like, did the monster create himself, or did the horror of it create him? You know, and that's the thing. So we don't know, but that's the thing. But at this moment in time in the documentary, there's a lot of rapid fire of some interesting characters, and we'll just kind of rattle them off. And Glynnis, probably just your thoughts and reactions to them. Most notably, China.
See, China was another person who I knew, and I just got really sad because she passed away this year. Yes.
Yes.
Is that this year?
Very recently. Yeah. Within about a year or two. It might have been last year.
She was supposed to be at the Dallas convention, wasn't she?
Yes.
So that would have been the beginning of this year, after April.
Yeah.
Wow, it's only been a couple months.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
Never mind, it feels so much longer.
Yeah.
So yes,
me
within
too.
the last couple months, like it.
It seemed like it was the beginning
of
the year.
2 or 3 weeks after.
Yeah.
The convention she didn't show up for. So.
Yeah, it bummed me out. Like, he talked about her being a UN, like a model UN, like a really clearly intelligent woman who
in the Peace Corps.
Peace Corps, that's what it was. But she was clearly intelligent, and I loved how she like rejected this like standard of femininity, but then he like put that thing that was like, then she got surgery.
Just to shit on her.
I know, just to like make her feel a little shitty. But like,
the way he could shit on her more is like, be like, well, she said, you know, being a lesbian is not a bad thing, and then she did porn with females. You know, like that would have been a better way. That could have shit on there too. Like.
Yeah, it made me sad because I knew, I was aware of the fact that she kind of unraveled as a person.
Yeah.
So like to see someone like before they do that is like there's a weird like sadness and dread that I get where it's like
that's her prime. That right there is her in her prime.
Before she started messing up her face and like
because like they were filming obviously the Royal Rumble '98, which is I believe the year she went in. They were talking about her possibly winning that year, I think. But I remember her being put over really strong. I think she like faced off against Stone Cold Steve Austin in the peak of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like she was that over of a star. So like you're seeing her in her prime and in her peak and stuff like that. And of course, where she ended up.
Yeah, you know what's coming. So it was like I saw her and I was like, oh.
Yeah, pretty deep there. And then we get into Spike Dudley. Bleeding, quoting Shakespeare.
Yes, I liked it because Shakespeare is my boy. So I thought he was intriguing in a really weird way. I wish he had like quoted more Shakespeare though, but I liked his Falstaff quote.
Well, he was bleeding from the head. I'm sorry, Glynnis. He couldn't think of lines from Henry VIII.
Yeah, as he told Barry there, like. I can't think of anything right now. I'm kind of bleeding.
I know, somebody's yelling at him. They're like, wipe your face. Like,
shut the fuck up!
I know, it's in my eye right now. All I see is red, okay?
Yeah. I'm trying to call Macbeth, you motherfuckers.
Then we have Coco Beware.
Oh.
What? Like, what?
Leave it at that. Just stop. They don't even need more explanation. What? And podcast over.
No, I literally was like, I can't process what's happening right now on the screen.
I couldn't process they called him a headliner.
I had to rewind it.
I barely want to call him a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I had to rewind it right there because, again, working on this really good puzzle. And, like, I was listening to it, and then he talked about taking Frankie's feathers out. And I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, wait, what? And then I had to rewind it, and he was talking about how he thought about it, like, in the future one day he would have to, like, he was putting, like, you're going to put a weave in your parrot? Like, you got a parrot weave? Who gets those?
Like, the parrot is part of the retirement plan. I was like, oh, no. Like, is that bird still... Like,
No, Frankie's dead.
Like, something...
Yeah.
His spirit,
God, I hope
like,
so. That thing lives forever.
They do live a long time, but I was like, something bad's going to happen when that bird goes. Like, he is attached to this thing.
Last time I saw Kokobi where he had a stuffed parrot, so...
Like a stuffed animal parrot, not like...
No, stuffed animal.
I thought you meant
like a taxidermy.
Yeah.
I don't know which is better. I don't know which is better. I'm still on the fence.
In my mind, it's a stuffed Frankie, still with a full-out span, and then Coco's just kind of dancing with it. Like.
Was he at all the fights, the bird? Did he stay?
Oh, yeah, he always brought the bird down.
And was he on, like, did he hang on the ropes, or, like, what did he do?
And they took him to the back afterwards.
Yeah, I think somebody would call him.
He was, like, the intro.
There was a time where WWE, which they don't talk about, also had an animal handler.
See? A whole line in the budget that's
for Jake the Snakes, and then the bird, and then there was a bulldog at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the dragon for Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah. Not a real dragon. He's not a Khaleesi, sweetheart.
A kimono dragon. Then next character we get introduced to, obviously, Jesse Ventura, hopefully running for president in 2020.
Anything's possible, y'all.
Keep our fingers crossed for Jesse. And then, of course, we get introduced to New Jack. Glynnis, what is your reaction to New Jack?
Well, when New Jack showed up, I'd kind of, like, been aware of this, the whole documentary. I was like, there are not very many brown people, like, black people, Hispanic people in this... or women, I was like, there's a lot of white dudes doing all this fighting. Yeah. So it was refreshing to meet New Jack, but
you were the first person.
If we ever do a montage of clips taken for an intro song,
Is he like the most hated wrestler of all time?
I wouldn't say he's hated. I like him because this might get back to him. But
you come for you.
There's a little bit of hate, not hate, but a little bit of fear and respect for that man.
No, it's just fear.
I was also
it's fear.
I was confused. There was like a toaster, and he had like crime. Like, what is his? Can you? Because all of them have like a gimmick and a story or like a backstory. What's his backstory? Like,
well, basically, I mean, as a character, like his gimmick,
like
basically, in the movie New Jack City. He's basically a gangster, and of course, like he was coming out around the time of the LA riot. So basically, he just comes out and just
a trash can full of other weapons, and like i.e. a toaster.
Natural Born Killers by Ice Cube's playing in the background while he's beating people up, but super babyface. Like usually, the way it would go in ECW is, you would have like Tommy Dreamer, fight somebody. And like Raven or whoever, and then all of a sudden like Stevie Richards would come in and hit Tommy, and then it'd be a DQ, and then there'd be two heels beating on one babyface. Then another good guy would come in, and then they'd kind of rally back up, and then another heel would come in, and then it was 3-2, and then another then it'd be 3-3, and then another bad guy would come in and be like 4-on-3, beating everybody up, standing in the ring. All of a sudden, New Jack's song would hit, and then just place would go nuts, absolutely crazy.
But the song would never stop playing.
Yeah,
like throughout the rest of the
whole time he was out, the song would play, and it would just repeat.
Was that part of his contract where he was like...
God, I hope so. If
that was something that Paul Heyman did to enhance him as a star.
Okay.
Is the idea of like, this music's just going to play in the background the whole time and you're just going to beat people up. And maximizing the fact that technically as a wrestler, he was no Luthez.
Right.
I don't think he'll stab me for me making that statement.
He knows he's not a dead old white guy.
Yeah, he knows that. But like him as a character and coming in and doing that and making the babyface save with that song... Nobody better. Nothing better, for sure. Like, absolutely fantastic. That's what his strengths were.
Yeah. I also like that he was just like, I like pain. Like,
and great talker, as we find out.
Yeah, and his audition. I also would totally watch the, like, buddy cop of Barry and New Jack. Because he was like, New Jack's my friend. And, like, they're driving to his audition together.
Could you imagine if the film world actually got New Jack instead of Ice Cube for all those Disney movies? Like, Are We There starring New Jack?
We can only hope. Or let's take even a little twist. Instead of Ice-T on Special Victims.
Oh, God damn.
We have New Jack.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on, you mean to tell me? And someone got hit with a stapler.
Yes. I would totally watch that. But,
more so than I already binge watched.
But any thoughts about New Jack before we move on? Other than he's fantastic. Because he might be listening and might stab me. Yeah, so.
He followed me on Twitter for a day, then they kicked him off Twitter.
He kicked off Twitter?
Oh, yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
How old is he now? Because the movie is just old enough
50s,
that I'm
right?
like...
Yeah, he is. And he tried to do stand-up comedy for a little bit, too.
And he still does it.
He still does?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him. He's
a whole bunch of N-words.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, moving on.
Cool. We'll just leave it. And podcast. A whole bunch of N-words. Podcast.
Yeah. Finally, we get to Terry Funk's retirement show, and this is, of course, where we get introduced to Dennis Stamp and the famous "I'm Not Booked."
Aww.
Glynnis, you have a very pouty face, a very upset face on your.
I was profoundly sad at the image of him like jumping on the trampoline, being like, "I gotta stay in shape in case I book something."
I don't know what my last one was, but I don't know what my next
No,
one is.
his last one was 1991. This is filmed in 97.
So
6
bad.
years.
Hey, man, no, you never retire, okay?
Oh, and him saying that, whoever Dory Funk's opponent is, nobody can have, Dory Funk can't have a better opponent than me, and the guy he's wrestling isn't that good. Know who the guy who wrestled on that show? Rob Van Dam.
Oh, no.
A guy who will end up being a WWE Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
One of the only guys ever to hold the ECW title and WWE title at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a weird little temper tantrum.
Yes, it was.
But I appreciate it. Made me like Funk even more that he was just like, I'm asking you, please come. Please come be there.
Be there.
Like, whatever, I'll give you what you want. Like...
And he's still, no, I'm not coming.
No,
and just that odd scene, like, why would you, and also as a production person, why would you record Terry walking away and stumbling? Like, I don't know why you put that in there.
And then, like, catch up
You've
with
already heard that, like, his knee, one of his knees just, like, doesn't exist anymore. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Why do you put that in there? But
I
anyway.
also love that they brought him to, like, where they're putting up the sign. And they're like, are you in this show? And he's like, standing in front of it like, no, I won't be there. Like,
No, I won't
No,
be
I'm here right now.
yeah, this is...
Well, actually, I sweep up this parking lot on Thursdays. It just happened that it's here this weekend.
Right.
For a little bit of side cash.
But they hammer it all out. He kept saying, I'm not booked, I'm not booked, I'm not booked.
You had
He
it rough in.
finally books him.
He's
Lands.
like, I'm going to miss the main event. Like,
I'm in the main event, and then tries to shake him down for money too. Like,
I know. He's like, did you just not remember that when I talked to you before?
we filmed it. Shut up.
Terry Funk has this retirement match.
You know.
Which the other time, girlfriend walked in and go, look, babe, I'm retiring right now.
One of many.
right here. This is me retiring right now. But also too, I should note his retirement show was set for in the year of 1997, September 11th.
I saw that.
Like,
I noticed that. I was like, oh, that date doesn't mean anything yet.
yeah, like,
And you know what? I'll never forget.
you'll never forget the Funk forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Forever.
Then moving right along to Jake the Snake Roberts' daughter. Oof.
Oof.
Is there only one?
No, there's multiple. I think Jake
Okay.
has several kids, but they decided to interview this one.
She was willing to be interviewed.
I can't imagine the amount of daddy issues that she has. I don't want to know what she needs sexually.
She has
because it's got to be bizarre.
She has her tongue pierced. She has daddy issues.
Yeah, and she had that burn book she made of him that she's
Yeah.
like showing the camera. It's like anger, 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 like written all over it. I was like, oh,
There's
girl.
almost part of me like, well, maybe you're the fucked up
Yeah.
one. Like, I was like, maybe Jake was a good dad and you're the messed up one. I
He's
don't know.
just scared of you.
Yeah.
Well, and then she was, I also thought it was really ironic that she was like, he just needs to get out from in front of the cameras. I'm like, you're literally being interviewed by a camera right
Yeah.
now.
You're like, here's my book about my father.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
I make lotions and candles. Here's also my business card.
ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, very colliding there. And of course, Jake's on the phone. And also, too, odd choice by the director to leave out him picking at something on his jacket.
The chocolate, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that chocolate or is that semen? What's that? Is that crack?
I know, he's so clearly trying to be like, I don't want to be talking about what we're talking about now.
But that's like this weird choices by the editor. I'm like, yeah, let's leave this part where Terry Funk trips on himself and where Jake can't figure out if he's got chocolate on his on his jacket.
I like to think that guy was like, man, fuck all these wrestlers. I'm going to make them all look like assholes.
Complete moron.
Like, if I can't wrestle, no one can.
That's right.
I did notice there was the only thing that, like, because that was it's a heavy moment where he, like, confronts his feelings and then is immediately like, I have to go do drugs now.
Yeah.
But there is he's wearing a pink scrunchie.
Yeah.
Which I was like, again, it's like, be a buddy and be like, maybe switch to, like, a rubber band.
Pick out that scrunchie.
Yeah, pull out the scrunchie. He did not have Jake the Snake's back in that moment.
Absolutely not. Like he
wanted
him to look as goofy as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he just bought him crack. He should do whatever he asked for.
Yep. Smoke crack.
And then, like, also, is it... I don't know. I mean, I guess as a documentary filmmaker, there are lines to cross, but I'm like, this guy is, like, high as hell and, like, spilling his guts. At what point are you like, I'm going to turn off my camera? You know what I'm saying? I know that he was making in the documentary, but that felt like if somebody, like...
Like a verbal snuff film?
Yeah, like, it's like, why are you even recording? Like, just be there with that human being who's having this, but, I don't know. I guess it's from Hollywood.
That's what a decent person does, but we don't. We don't all work for decent people, as I can attest to.
As we have spoken, we're shitty people.
Yes. We got to sell those shoot tapes,
right.
so we've got to get these guys all liquored up.
Right.
But yeah.
So maybe we'll get this man more crack.
Yes, and I feel like I can say this story about him now because he's better. But every time I think about Jake the Snake and him smoking crack, as I remember being on a show with him in North Carolina, and him being picked up at the show and immediately looking for crack, and then him smoking crack in somebody's car and somebody being very upset about it. And this was in 2007, 2008. Now, that's 10 years after Beyond the Mat, and he's obviously smoking crack then. He was smoking crack then. He did not get sober until 2012. This man survived 15 years of smoking crack. I feel like whoever's telling us that crack is bad for us, you can go 15 years on it.
I don't know. I think that means Jake the Snake is like a mountain of a man.
That's the other side of it. Is it just mean that he's a mountain of a man?
Yeah.
Does he have something that the rest of us don't have? Like, I don't know, but
he's
15 years
on the evolution chart. We just don't know it.
15 years of smoking crack, he survived. And that's just from this documentary. He might have been smoking crack 2-3 years before that. He may have 20 years of smoking crack under his belt, and he has survived.
And doing better than ever.
He's doing great. He's dyeing the mustache. He's got more color in his skin than I do. Like, he's doing far better.
Every once in a while, he gets in the ring, he wrestles a bit.
Yeah.
That makes this. I'm so glad because I didn't know this. I'm so glad to know that is the other side of this story.
So, Jake, are you saying that possibly we should get together as a trifecta and make a modern day Where Are They Now Beyond the Mat?
Yeah.
Oh, let's do it.
Beyond the Mat too.
Oh man.
Get together.
Beyonder.
Beyonder
the Mat.
Beyonder the Mat. Figure.
You can meet your husband.
I can finally meet my husband.
Mick Foley. We know where Jake the Snake is. We know where New Jack is. Some of these people probably did.
Yeah.
But
China.
draws. He's still alive.
He's still alive.
He's paralyzed though, right?
Yes,
he owns a lawn company.
Yes.
Okay. Small business owner.
Yeah,
he's doing okay. He's doing okay.
Right.
I think he's made the most of it. Made the most of the situation.
Can't make much of it.
Yeah, you said that, I didn't.
That was Zane.
He's not listening.
That was Zane.
My name is Mason Burnett. Fuck New Jack while I'm at it.
Or the girl he used to date. Anyways, moving right along. Mick Foley at the Royal Rumble 98. And we also get to see a very young Rock at this time. He's going to be facing The Rock in the title match. So this is the moment where you fell in love with him. Am I correct? Or were you always...
No, this was where I had like a little dip in my love. Just because... Well, I saw The Rock and I wrote, The Rock! Exclamation point. because I know him.
Because that's what everybody does. It's
it's The Rock.
Everybody's a great man to The Rock.
Double tap that Instagram. Double tap that Instagram.
The sexiest man.
But this is where I was like, it became really problematic for me with the kids watching, because like they were doing this weird thing with kids who I think are too little. They were like, "You understand this is fake, right?" And the kids are like, "Yeah," and it's like they don't understand. And then like the mom is freaking out when they're watching it, so they're looking at their mom and they're like, "Oh shit, she's afraid. Like this is real." Like I was like, you know, I think you should do whatever you want with your career, but I was like, maybe don't let them watch until they're old enough to like really understand. Because I like when they were crying and watching that match, like I was crying, like I was emotionally invested. I was like, I hate The Rock. Like it made me turn on The Rock. But yeah, that was a really intense showdown between the two of them. And also like, yeah.
Yeah, I remember like this part of the documentary and being affected by it as well. Like it like really like was like, wow, like this is, I feel like that gave the true consequences of what we do, because like, and that's the thing too, like I think maybe because like, I don't know if it's my generation of people, like we saw this documentary and we understand it and we could, you know, like we could process it that way. And I don't know if a lot of kids have seen Beyond the Mat, or when they see it, it's like, oh, it's something that's got a bunch of funny lines in it that everybody quotes. I'll just watch it for that, as opposed to the explanation or the expose of the sense of like what it does to your family members and how normal people kind of see and interact with what we do in the ring and do that. Where like I feel like people are like, oh, I'm just gonna do a million flips, or I'll take a bunch of chair shots, or I'll do this and bump around. I won't even think about the consequences. Where when you see something like this, you kind of get some levity to it. Which when they showed Mick back the footage and really like actually from that moment of him, this documentary being released, like Mick's he did become the guy that pulled the sock out of his tights. Yeah. He wasn't like, this was kind of like the last hurrah of him being this hardcore beast that was, taking chair shots to the head unprotected, jumping off the apron to the ground.
Falling through that.
Yeah, like all of those
cage.
things.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
like this is kind of like him kind of realized like, hey, this is all going to catch up to me physically, but and he knew that. He's always known that. Like, this is going to catch up with me physically. This is going to catch up with me. Oh, well, I'll push away. I need to keep making money for my family. But then he's really like, ooh, me doing this and my kids saying this is really affecting them. It's affecting my kids, and I need to curtail this. So yeah. I feel like this was like, we get to see a very pivotal point in somebody's career and a change. And, now he's become, like this guy who's like a host extraordinaire on Raw and cuts these promos and like, I think a second part of his career, and showing how talented he really is. He didn't have to kill himself, and that's what people have been saying for years. Like, you don't have to kill yourself. You're very talented. You don't have to kill yourself. And finally, he's proven that in spades. He's on WWE right now as a commissioner and proving that he can be entertaining. And also, he's lost a ton of weight. Like, at this moment in time, he's roughly probably around 300 pounds. Which is, I remember talking to him not so long ago. He said his best, when he was at his best, he felt like he was about 300 pounds, was, in his prime. Now he's down to like 220, 205 right now. Like, he's lost a bunch of weight and he feels real good about it. So, and he's really turned his life around. He's moving around a lot better. So, I think this part is very interesting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, because talking to my husband, like, young, I think mostly boys, like, it was very interesting to me. Anytime you saw women in the documentary, it was often like the wrestlers' wives and daughters being like watching and just wanting to die. But it's like mostly like men are in the audience. And like, what age? Because I think it's different watching wrestling when you're a little kid. If it's not your dad, like, I feel like that's where part of the like what they got so upset was about. But like, what? Like, I don't know. Do you think you guys think it's appropriate to like bring? I don't know if either of you have children or want children, but like, at what point would you let them come watch you get, like, wailed on? Or would you not?
Well, since we don't have kids.
This is, like, super hypothetical. But I just mean, also generally.
I'm afraid of breaking kids. That's why I don't have kids. So, like, that.
I might have kids. I don't fucking know.
I've never met them.
But, yeah. That's a good question. I've never put thought to it because I've never put the thought to having kids.
Well,
but at the same time too, like really wouldn't want to have them around. Also, kind of in the same way that my father didn't have me around farming. because he didn't want me to become a farmer because, like, don't have this life because this is a shitty life.
It's hard, right?
And I don't want them to be around pro wrestling because I don't want them to do that. And if anything, if I want them around it, I'll probably get them in a ring and beat them up real bad so they don't ever do it. Much like my father on the farm put me in a manure pit and told me to shovel your way out.
Right. And cured you of ever wanting to.
Yeah, it's like, this is what farming is, and like would wake me up, and then like made it real rough on me. It's like, you don't want this life. You need to learn how to do something else and be smarter and get an education and not do this. So,
right.
Like, I feel like that's, what I would probably do if I had kids, is run them away from as much as possible, which is funny, is actually the storyline for Mick Foley's reality show on WWE Network.
Yeah, his daughter's training to be a wrestler, right?
Yes.
Maybe Wikipedia.
Personality, I would say, maybe would be a little better. It probably would suit her better.
Mm-hmm. She's not built like a wrestler.
She could definitely be a personality for sure. Like, I feel like she could be involved in professional wrestling. But yeah, if you want to feel really old, just look at pictures of her now.
Yeah, I googled her. my future daughter,
I'm sure not.
Might as well check her. Never mind, I hate this bitch.
I'm sure you're not the only one that has us listen to this podcast.
I mean, she's beautiful. She's like a Barbie doll. I'm like, oh dang. That's that weird thing where I'm like, 90s. I was a kid, and I'm like, that's like 20 years ago now, which is wild.
Yeah, it's very.
How did her genetics come from Mick Foley?
But see, that's the thing. The mom was a model.
Well,
you have that sensitive.
Cox-esque.
Yeah.
Mom.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. His wife's gorgeous, and it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like it's a luck of the DNA draw, because it's like Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley had a daughter, and that woman looked like just like Billy Joel. You know what I mean? Like, it's the sort of thing where like it just kind of whatever gets shaken up in the like chromosomes, because she looks nothing like him at all. And I mean,
so she's more of a side-town girl instead of an uptown girl.
Not an uptown girl. She's hanging out by the tracks.
Wrong side of the tracks, girl. But another thing I feel like I should just kind of throw in here at this one segment in time about the 98 Rumble, I find it hilarious that gorilla position for this pay-per-view is just basically just a table and a monitor.
Mm-hmm.
What's gorilla position?
Basically where they were all sitting at the table with the headsets and telling each other, like, where the talent walks through the curtain. Like, it's just a curtain hung up and they got a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And I hate going back to it. Like this past 2 weeks ago on Monday, they built an entire stage. They had 50 stage hands, building the stage, and they built a little room.
About the size of this living room.
About the size of this living room.
To be your set?
No, to be their control room.
The control room?
Just their control room with, pictures on the wall, and they put in a big desk with monitors and
stuff.
stuff.
It's like a dream catcher.
Yeah, all kinds. They built their own control room for that.
An in-sync poster on the wall.
It was,
I want to feel at home.
Yeah. It was real cool like that, because they had, it looked like a mirror on the wall, but it was see-through, so they could actually look at the crowd directly and see how they're reacting to stuff.
Oh,
but you couldn't look into it and see.
And they build it up piece by piece, with individual wall, and it's sitting on the stage, and talent would walk up there, and then they walk out the curtain there. Where this was just put a table, hook up a few monitors. There we go, we're good to go. One guy set that up in 15 minutes, where it took 50, 60 people every Monday night
a couple hours.
Yeah, and union workers and everybody else.
That's wild.
The way it's grown is ridiculous.
Also, I wrote, again, because I'm come from performance world, I said, Dwayne's acting has come a long way. He was selling it real hard.
Think so? You think so? Now we're going to get to the epilogue of the movie and stuff like that just real quick. They start talking about Tony Jones and Mike Modest. Tony, but this would be a good time to maybe update people on what we know about these people before we get them on the horn and we do Beyonder the Mat.
Beyonder the
Mat. Tony Jones still worked at Visa. Mike Modest said he lost his job and moved to another job. But good news about Mike Modest to inform you, he went on to wrestle for Noah in Japan. Remember he was talking about Japan? He got to have a good run in Japan in Noah and in its prime. He was over there very early and stuff like that. So he actually had a pretty decent career in Japan. I'll let you know about that. Roland's gym shows did get closed down and they got reopened. APW is still a thing. Roland Alexander, I believe, is still running APW if I'm not mistaken. And actually,
think we can use this podcast to get booked by him?
Maybe so. Have we said enough good things about him?
I mean, we should go back. We'll re-edit this out.
Yeah, we love
we'll ADR some positive things.
Yeah. But he's obviously doing it. I remember Drake Younger praises him for giving him an opportunity when he was around. Drake Younger, who's now a referee for WWE and former wrestler. So
dang.
Yeah. Terry Funk, of course, retired multiple times.
Yeah.
You got this look on his face like it doesn't turn out so well.
Well, no, I was sad when it was like he didn't stay out, just because when you see the physical, like his story was the one where like I liked how he kind of cut the shots of like him wrestling and then like him being in his life and like getting out of bed, where it's like you see the cost of that career. And so I thought it was getting to like when he was like, I'm out, and like his wife and his daughters were all like, good, like you're finally taking care of yourself. And then it was like, and he's back in the game. Like,
you're
just
darn
worry
right
for his. Does he have new knees, like bionic knees now?
I don't know what he has. I don't know what he's walking on. But his last match I believe was in the fall of last year. I believe that was for House of Hardcore with Tommy
How
Dreamer.
old is he now?
He's probably 50 then.
So
yeah,
it's
like,
probably in his 70s, 60s. Why don't you look that
I'm
up?
gonna get that on the Google later.
Yeah.
He's a lifer, man. At this point, it's like, just keep going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'll die now. Right?
Actually, he introduced me to the ring and was in my corner for a match that I had against Jerry the King
No
Lawler,
way!
who had Mick Foley in his corner. And Terry was a fucking madman.
Really?
Like, when he gets in front of that crowd, like, I see why he doesn't want to quit. He just went insane.
It's like a drug.
Yeah, and they kept telling him, like, because he's kind of unpredictable. Terry, whatever you do, don't swear in a live microphone. Don't swear in a live microphone.
They're like, there's one rule.
Oh god damn it!
No, the first thing he grabbed the microphone, he goes, bullshit! Bullshit! And we're in a high school gym. Like, and we have high school kids there, and he's just screaming bullshit at the top of his
They probably
lungs.
thought it was the best.
Oh yeah, they were super.
I thought it was the best, but fuck
You're like,
everybody
I wasn't
else.
even at school.
And then he introduced me and come out to wrestle Jerry the King Lawler, which, you know.
Fuck all this.
Wow.
Shit.
Highlight of my career, by the way.
Yeah.
But I had to slip that in that, yes, he's still doing it. And the fact,
Dang.
and when he gets in front of the crowd, like, not only they tell him not to curse in front of the microphone, but like, be careful. So before the match, the bell ever rang, he cursed on the microphone several times. He, I believe, swung at a fan, broke the ring steps, and slapped me as hard as he possibly could across the face.
Luckily for you, at his old age.
What is his age?
72.
At 72 years old.
Dang.
Still scared of this man.
Still scared of
Did
this
it hurt, or were you just like too cranked up?
It was
to
an
feel
open
it?
hand, at least.
Oh, okay.
It was an open hand, but he brought it.
You should have slapped him back. Like
He would have loved it. I
Like
bet.
that was your guys' like thing. We just slap each other
This is what we
in
do.
the face.
That's how we say hi.
God damn it, Jake!
But we tried to do the, instead, you know, where he goes forever. We did the man scout with the fists or whatever. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
So I like that. That was our one team thing we did.
Good.
That was before he punched me in the face.
Hey,
Jake the Snake Roberts, as we said before, sober, doing DDP yoga. And actually, him and DDP scooped up Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and helped get him sober as well.
Right.
not as equally as good of a story.
Yeah, but
you know,
still,
they're trying. They're still working.
They're
Yeah.
still scooping up people and helping them out.
Jake the
Awesome.
Snake now also doing stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting as well to see, or at least storytellings and stuff like
Yeah.
that at comedy clubs. Draws, of course, was paralyzed, as we mentioned, and as you said, long
And alive.
and alive.
Is he like fully paralyzed, or like from?
Yeah, from like neck down.
Does
Like,
that? Because I don't know anything about the industry, but I imagine that happens when you're doing something in an unsafe way, like that kind of injury. Because I know you guys get
Sometimes
injured.
that shit's fluke.
Because
Right.
it happened with D'Lo Brown, a running power bomb, which
It
is
was just
pick up,
literally the luck
and
of
they
the
just
draw.
tripped. And D'Lo is a very good ring
Yeah.
technician. Like, of all the people that you would get hurt with, D'Lo Brown would probably be the last guy you'd pick on the
Right.
list. And that just
It
happened.
just happened. Oh, man.
And then he has to live with that the rest of his life.
Yeah, life is cruel, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Tis a cruel mistress.
Was there? I believe it happened. Did Draws do something with the Legion of Doom
Yes, he
at
did.
some point?
He was going to take Hawk's place because
Okay.
Hawk was an alcoholic, and they brought that story.
That's what I thought. Because at the beginning, when they're like, they have Hawk and they have Animal and they have Puke, well, he
Yeah.
eventually becomes tag team partners with Hawk and Animal,
Oh,
Which is-
okay.
which I
Yeah.
thought very ironic.
which was going to work out well. And then ECW, as I said, went to TNN, but then the TNN just had ECW on there to generate enough revenue to get WWE to lure over from the USA Network.
Right.
And then WWE, talk about it, a publicly traded company, and now they make millions of dollars and enough money to make their own gorilla position.
And Dennis Stamp is still not booked.
Glynnis, what are some other reactions and thoughts to this documentary that we have glazed over? You want to get out?
We covered a lot of it. It was really, I actually really liked. I thought I was like, oh, this will be kind of silly and dumb, but it was very human. Like seeing these people and like understanding that it's more than, the performance was really cool for me. It wrecked me for sure. I was like on this emotional roller coaster when I was watching it. I'm glad to hear that a lot of them have, happier endings, unless you're making that up just because.
Yeah, somehow you seem like a very liberal snowflake. I just want you to live in a nice life in this new America that we have. So I want you just not to leave here.
We wanted you to have a safe place when it came to wrestling.
Right.
When it came to wrestling.
Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, and one of the biggest things too that I got from watching it was the injury and like the actual like physical cost of the career. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, because you guys both have been doing this a while now. Is that something that like you just have a high, because he has that kind of cheesy quote at the end who's like, they're just like us but not, and it's like, I think it does take a special personality or a different personality to endure. Most humans like avoid physical pain at all costs, and I feel like wrestlers kind of seek it out. Do you guys feel like
you have to, like, my trainer George Southwood, who I mentioned earlier, has a very good quote, and it hits me especially now, is that the second you think about it is the second you need to get out. Because if you think about it, you realize how dumb and how bad and how awful it could turn in a second. This doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't be doing this. Your body you should not be doing this to your body. The second you start thinking about it in that way, and as you get older and you try to protect yourself a little bit, you start thinking about that. And if you're not going out there and attacking, like the mat when you land, that's when it hurts more. Mm-hmm. That's you have a higher propensity to hurt yourself and do damage to yourself, and that's where the injuries happen. But
do you guys did you, Zane, like, are you just not afraid of pain? Do you?
No, I actually fucking hate it. Like, I hate pain. I don't know though. It's really weird. Like, we jokingly discussed about doing one of these episodes with like a psychologist or something that would be like, this is what's wrong with this person. But I believe there's some sort of, I personally believe, and this is not everyone's cup of tea to think, that there's somewhere in all of us, there's some type of baseline like mental disturbance in which that we would continuously do this to ourselves. I mean, we openly and knowingly think our body shouldn't do this is silly, but we keep doing it. We don't stop. I believe there's some sort of emotional and mental disturbance that we have that keeps us doing this.
Yeah, and I feel like too, like for a long time I had a strange suspicion of why I couldn't leave wrestling is because I have like a baseline feeling of hating myself, and I feel like the more I beat myself up, the better I feel. Like, oh, I'm in pain because I deserve to be in pain. Right. This is the way I'm supposed to feel, and that's how it resonates himself. Where a normal person, they get in a bad relationship, they do destructive things, they get drunk every Friday night,
right?
And I think that's where we see even just like I listen to a lot of podcasts with MMA fighters and UFC fighters, and they seem like very secure individuals because they embrace that idea of getting beat up and pain, and they've occupied that space of that self-destructiveness in what they do, and they use it as a positive thing. And I think that's kind of what a lot of wrestlers do subconsciously, and a lot of them don't think of it that way. But like I've had to dissect it in my own self, like why do I still want to do this? Because because after I've wrestled like 2 or 3 shows in a weekend and I'm beat up on Monday and I have a whole bunch of money in my pocket, it feels good because not only the money but the fact that like I deserve to feel this bad. And then you have to psychoanalyze yourself.
Mine, like personally, I think is more such of it's more so a dependency. Like I'm not I like to drink a whole bunch, but like I'm not like an addictive personality person. But
like you know,
say old Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
But like me personally, it's like a dependency because like I've been doing this for going on 10 years now, and I've put so much work and sacrificed so much for wrestling. It's gotten to the point now where I think like my body can't do this much longer. It's very physically sad because like I've sacrificed so much. If I don't do it, then what I've done for the last 10 years is now pointless and bullshit. And it's affected many relationship, both friendships or like loving relationships or whatever. So where he thinks he deserves to be hurt, I am too dependent on it to stop because I'm I'm scared of what the alone of wrestling is. Like, what's after that? Like, what?
It's the thing that makes you special.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's the thing that defines you. Like, hey, here's my buddy Zane. He's also a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's how I introduce him.
Yeah.
But then how do I say, oh, this is my buddy Zane?
Then
yeah.
So what's so special about this fucking guy?
What's he all about?
Yeah.
So every time you wrestle, do you feel like when you guys? So Jake, you were saying you feel like, spent and like you've kind of earned this pain. But like as you wrestle, do you feel like every time you wrestle, do you emotionally kind of that disturbance you're talking about? Is it like amplified or is it processed more or is it?
Well, actually, like. Whereas Jake feels like when he beats himself up that he was successful in the situation. When the weekend is over for me, and not because I have to go back to my real job or anything, because I actually enjoy my real job. It's fine. But I feel that like my big goal is to like leave it. Boy Scout rule: leave it better than you found it.
Right.
And so like I always have that feeling of it's a little bit better because I was there this weekend. I told someone something or so forth, and so on. But when the actual drainage of it goes away, it's like it's very depressing. You're just like, fuck, now I gotta wait another weekend to do it, and then it becomes kind of bitter. Like, why the fuck am I even doing this anymore? And then it's this big cycle, and then I go and do it again that next weekend, and I start over high and then get low, and I don't know. I end up feeling more depressed come Monday than anything.
By the time it kind of falls out of you.
Yeah, you just kind of fuck, and then come like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have to kind of go from like extreme bottom depression to start to kind of work your way back up.
Right, you gotta rev it back up.
Here we go, and then Friday's cool, and then Saturday's the shits, and Sunday's kind of whatever, and then it just starts all over.
Right, so it's like a cycle.
A different type of roller coaster.
Yeah, that's interesting. Something I also appreciated from watching the movie is because I feel like it's very easy to make fun of wrestling, and people who are not involved in the sport are like, it's they have a kind of comedic view of it. But I was like, there's also like you said, you're looking at those crowds, I'm like, everyone's like, oh, it's so dumb. I'm like, there are a lot of people who want to see it, and I feel like wrestlers also like kind of, it's the same thing with stage and performance where it's like they're being like, you guys are being the versions of themselves that people wish they could be. You know what I mean? When somebody talks about that in the documentary where it's like where you see someone actually be like, I am a person who can do this, and like I feel like wrestlers kind of are like special in that they, the average person watching it like is like, yeah, like they tap into something really primal that like it connects everyone, which I think is really cool. And I appreciated more after watching this and talking to you guys. Because last time we spoke, we weren't talking about wrestling, but
yeah, we were talking all about you.
We were talking about comedy.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
cool.
Good. But any other questions?
No, I think you answered. I knew heel. What's the opposite of a heel? Because a heel's the villain, is what I call them in my brain. Like bad guy.
Babyface would be a good guy.
Okay, or like a champ. I think that's it. I'm just gonna look over my little notes. Yeah, I don't have any other. Oh, I did have a little questions about training, but we don't have to talk about that. I don't want to get nitty gritty, but like, because we're talking about, we laughed about the doctor line about that's how you do it, but like, how do you actually what did you guys do to? What are your training backgrounds?
Just, you basically got to do it. It's like, here's the moves, how you do it, and it's repetitive.
Yeah. And do you guys, because there seem to be like two camps of like athletes who are like, this guy can wrestle and knows like the sport of wrestling, and then there's like the flashier like showmen who are like more about the entertainment side. Do you guys have a preference for?
Oh, showman.
Yeah.
Hurts way less.
Yeah.
Everybody went the same way, and like the wrestling, the training part there, as far as they showed it, the moves and whatnot, is really just the easy part. That's the simple stuff. I can show you how to fucking body slam Jake, and you do it, and it's done, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you just gotta just repeat it. Like if you just did the same, learn how to do body slam
like a language.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the psychology of it, or the psychology of knowing how to properly brand yourself, or how to actually make the money, and that kind of stuff is where you go from being a hobbyist to an actual professional wrestler.
Yeah, it's like I said, learning a language. You can learn how to speak Spanish, but in the sense of pro wrestling, that's like going to Mexico City, moving down there, being immersed, and then having to deal with all the laws, and then until you like not only are you now in Mexico City, you have to make X amount of dollars to survive.
Right.
You know, like,
but then you fucked up because it's pesos.
Yeah, and then you got to add that up, and then you're just completely immersed in this language and the nuances and the culture, and you got to deal with all of that, and just deal with the travel and this, and deal with all of that.
You can barely order food at Taco Bell in America, let alone going down to.
And you just feel like a moron most of the time.
Spiraling the shame spiral.
Yeah. Exactly.
But we digress.
Let's digress. But anyways, before we get out of here, Glynnis, please you have a live microphone. You're a performer. Let people know if they're like, hey, she's an awesome girl. I want to know the things that she's doing and the shows she's producing and all sorts of things. Please plug, say whatever. So this is that time for that.
Sure. Well, I'm an improviser and I work with Improv Charlotte, and we perform the third Saturday of every month at the Charlotte Art League. Over in South End. And then I will be doing a show called Women Playing Hamlet. I will be doing the To Be or Not To Be monologue, which is very exciting, in March with Donna Scott Productions. And you can find all of that if you go to my Facebook, Glynnis O'Donoghue.
Yeah.
I'm there.
All right. Zane, what do you got?
I will be in Hickory, North Carolina Saturday night for Milestone Wrestling, and we'll be in Madison, North Carolina for TNT Wrestling, also on Saturday, but at like 2 p.m. It is a church fundraiser or some charity fundraiser. I'm going to be someplace I don't belong, and then I'm going to wrestle, and then I'm going to go to Hickory.
Okay. I will be hosting at the Comedy Zone December 13th through the 17th. So on Tuesday night, I'll be able to cap myself set off and be like, hey, I'll be here all week. And that won't be a lie. I'll be here all week, which would be a fact. And then, of course, that Sunday, December 18th, PWX, I'll be wrestling Broken Matt Hardy at the Cabarrus Arena. So make sure you check that out. And, of course, I've got some other stuff in January and those other things. But, as always, follow me on social media. But if you want to know more about this show, if you feel like we got it wrong, if you feel like we glazed over something, please tweet me at ManScoutManning or send an email at jake@sslshow.com. Also, too, make sure you visit the website howdidthisgetbooked.com, especially for How Did This Get Booked t-shirts and Man Scout Manning merchandise. Also, too, make sure you subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. Also, too, we're available on Google Play. Hopefully you already know about that because you're listening to this podcast. But please do also subscribe to youtube.com/ManScoutManning, and also follow on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ManScoutManning. It's been another edition of How Did This Get Booked?
Woo!